Hi, I'm Thumper. And a little over a month ago, I put out a video on systemic bias and I talked about it in relation to women and flying fighters. Well, this week on Askin' Athena, Tanya from Alabama asked, could you share with us an example of racial systemic bias? Well, when I was a junior in college, my ROTC commander asked me why I didn't put in my application for pilot training, and I told him, sir, I'm not qualified. I said this because when I was a freshman, I had taken the Air Force Officer Qualification Test, or AFOQT, and my scores in the pilot and navigator categories were not very good. So he encouraged me to take the test again, and on my second attempt, my scores were just barely high enough for me to apply for a pilot slot. So I put in my application, was selected for pilot training, and then through my training was awarded an F-16. So what changed from my freshman to my junior year in college? Well, during that time in the ROTC, I got interested in aviation. So through the Civil Air Patrol, I was able to get a little bit of ground school and about 4 hours of discovery flying. Those things helped me when I went to take the AFOQT again to understand a little bit better what I was seeing on the test. So how is that related to racial systemic bias? Here's how it's associated. The AFOQT was an aptitude test that was designed to measure a person's capacity to acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to become a successful military pilot. But what we realized it was actually measuring was a person's current capacity, based on previous exposure to aviation-related elements. This meant that if a person had ground school, had gone to aviation camps, had exposure to flying, any of those things were going to help boost their scores on the AFOQT and make them more competitive for a pilot slot. Whereas a person who didn't have that type of exposure was not going to do as well on the test and may not even score high enough to put in an application for pilot training. This meant that we were disqualifying people not on the basis of ability, but on the basis of exposure. And this is associated with racial systemic bias because it disproportionately affected minorities and even women. And that's because many minorities and women didn't even know about aviation opportunities until well into high school and sometimes not even until college. So how do we avoid this type of racial systemic bias? Well, first of all, in our hiring and promotion practices, we need to check our metrics and make sure that they are actually measuring what we intend for them to measure so that we do not unwittingly eliminate high potential candidates. Next, we need to look at how we might be able to home grow our own pool of highly qualified, diverse candidates. We can do this via summer camps, internships, and scholarships by bringing young hopefuls to our organizations, showing them what we do, getting them excited about what we do, and then mentoring them to understand the steps that they need to take to become competitive applicants for us in the future. I think sometimes when we're thinking about diversity, we stumble over the concept of equality because we think that, hey, if we're offering everybody the same thing, if we're affording them all the same opportunity, then it's fair. But social psychologist Jennifer Eberhardt says, treating everyone the same, even when they're differently situated, might not be as fair as we think it is. And so when we're looking at diverse candidates, we need to consider not so much equality, but equity. What does each individual employee need so that they can reach their full potential? This is important because we know that diversity is positively correlated with the success of our organizations. In fact, by just increasing your diversity by 1%, for every 1% you increase your diversity, whether it's gender, ethnic, or cultural, you are increasing your profit margins by 3 to 9%. That's significant. And when you look at further diversifying your leadership and executive teams, those gains are astronomical. And I think that's because organizations that truly value diversity are willing to shift and change their cultures to become more inclusive. This creates a connectivity among their employees. They want to work for you, and they become walking advertisements. Through this, you are naturally increasing your recruitment, job satisfaction, and retention. And all of these things mean that you are becoming an organization that is committed to creativity, innovation, and transformative change.